Welcome to This Explainer. We're jumping right into 3 historic, high-stakes days of Vice President Sara Zimmerman Duterra's impeachment trial. If you've been following the news, you know there is a massive amount of dense legal paperwork floating around out there. But at its absolute core, this is all about taxpayer money. Today, we're unpacking these massive trial transcripts and turning them into a clear, chronological journal of what actually happened on the Senate floor.
Here's how we're breaking it down today. First up, Day 1 and the trial stipulations. Then, Day 2, where we look at the missing proof. After that, Day 3, focusing on the senator's questions. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the defining word.
All right, let's dive straight into Section 1, Day 1, Trial Stipulations.
So this official journal puts us right in the room, inside the Senate, which is sitting as an impeachment court on Monday, August 3rd, 2026. Picture this, right? Both sides are literally staring down 15 massive boxes of physical evidence. It is absolute bureaucratic warfare. Before the real battle even kicks off, they desperately need to figure out what facts they can actually agree on.
And here is exactly where the battle lines are drawn. To save time, both sides actually agree on the basics. They agree on the fixed confidential fund allocations of 125 million pesos per quarter. They agree the issued checks are authentic, and they agree on the authorized signatures of the officers. But the defense draws a super hard line. They flat out refuse to stipulate on roughly 900 acknowledgement receipts covering a highly scrutinized window at the very end of 2022.
With those lines drawn, the prosecution's star witness takes the stand. This is State Auditor Roderick Wamil, who happens to be both a lawyer and a CPA. He immediately introduces the absolute bedrock of his entire audit, Joint Circular 2015-01. This is basically the government's master rulebook for exactly how confidential and intelligence funds have to be handled.
Auditor Wamil really sets the tone for his whole testimony with this quote. He says, "We follow strict compliance since what is involved is public funds, so strict accounting and auditing rules prevent misuse." He's making it crystal clear that because this is the public's money, our money, there is zero room for just substantial compliance. The rules demand absolutely strict adherence.
Moving right along to Section 2, Day 2, the missing proof. Now, the court zeroes in on this staggering number, 125 million pesos. This represents the confidential funds that were withdrawn in full by the Office of the Vice President in the fourth quarter of 2022.
But the real shocker here is the timeline. That entire 125 million pesos was completely exhausted in just 11 days, specifically right over the holidays between December 21st and December 31st. If you do the math on that, it breaks down to over 11 million pesos spent every single day. To put that into perspective, it's like buying a luxury condo in cash every 24 hours, supposedly for things like safe house rentals and informant rewards.
The auditor then meticulously breaks down these massive expenses across 2023. Just take a look at these figures. We're seeing 10 million pesos for reward payments in one quarter, suddenly jumping to 35 million for rewards in another. Millions more are supposedly going toward counterinsurgency and preventing the recruitment of students by leftist groups inside schools.
Yet, despite all this incredible spending, Auditor Wamil repeats one crucial observation over and over again, almost like a drumbeat. He says, "None was submitted, no document evidencing the success of the information gathering." According to his audit, the agencies simply failed to provide the required documentary evidence to prove these multi-million peso operations were actually successful. And this perfectly illustrates the core conflict of the entire trial. On one side, you have the auditor's rigid, bureaucratic demand for physical receipts and written proof of success. But on the flip side, the defense argues that confidential intelligence work is inherently classified and dangerous. Detailing these operations on standard government forms could seriously compromise national security.
Which brings us to Section 3, Day 3, Senator's Question. On this third day of our journal, Wednesday, August 5th, the tension really shifts. The focus moves away from the prosecution's direct allegations, and it's actually the senator judges themselves who step in. They start posing some really tough, highly practical questions to the witness, trying to bridge that gap between textbook auditing and real-world national security.
To set the stage, the auditor explains the legal timeline. Because these success documents were missing, he first issued an audit observation memorandum. When responses fell short, it escalated to a notice of suspension, and ultimately, it culminated in a notice of disallowance. So think of it like a warning, then a freeze, and finally a formal legal demand for a refund.
But several senators push back pretty hard on the strict auditing timeline. They pose a really fascinating question. Is evidence of success strictly required when you're dealing with highly sensitive intelligence gathering and hidden terrorist threats? Is a rigid, paper-based definition of success even possible in the murky world of national security?
The senators grill the witness from all possible angles. Senator Zubiri points out that other agencies manage to provide highly detailed reports of buy-busts. But on the other hand, Senator Padilla highlights how real-world foiled terrorist plots require off-the-books spending that just won't yield a standard receipt. And Senator Laxton, a former law enforcer, makes a super interesting point. He argues that negative intelligence, meaning conducting surveillance and finding absolutely nothing, is still a completely valid and costly expense that will never look like a success on a spreadsheet.
Cornered on these gritty, practical realities of intelligence work by these seasoned lawmakers, the auditor makes a crucial admission. He states, "I would know. We base it only on the documents submitted to us." He essentially admits that he lacks a high-level security clearance, so he can't judge the actual operational success of a mission. He can only impartially judge what is physically placed right there on his desk.
Finally, we reach Section 4, the defining word.
Having explored the trial stipulations, those dizzying financial figures, and the intense senatorial debate, let's recap the steps of this narrative. Step 1. 125 million pesos rapidly spent in just 11 days. Step 2. Strict auditing rules demand written proof of successful operations. Step 3. A repeated failure to submit that required documentary evidence. And Step 4. A profound clash between the public's right to financial transparency and the state's need for national security.
Throughout hundreds of pages of trial transcripts, the auditor's recurring observation just echoes so loudly across the Senate floor. When asked for the proof of these multi-million peso rewards in safe houses, the answer was consistently, none submitted.
If we compile all those missing receipts, the disallowed funds, and the deeply unanswered questions posed by the senators from August 3rd to the 5th, there is a single word that defines this entire phase of the trial: unaccounted. And that leaves us with a really provocative final thought as this impeachment trial moves forward. In a democracy, when the urgent shadows of national security clash with the strict, unbending light of public accountability, who ultimately decides what stays hidden? It's a huge question about where we draw the line between keeping the public safe and keeping the public blind. Definitely something to think about. We'll see you in the next explainer.